Okay, I want to ask you about altcoin season. Everyone's asking, is it coming? And people are saying, hey, this cycle we have so much garbage. And what is happening now?
Well, I mean, I think that all your altcoins, most of them are probably not going to go up in price again.
Retail interest in the altcoins, and actually some people track also crypto channel volume, viewership volume, is significantly lower now than 4 years ago, despite the fact that Bitcoin and many other things have reached new highs.
Again, I think a lot of these coins have not performed very well. They were priced wrong. They were priced too expensive.
앞으로 다가올 세대 갈등, 그리고 그 끝엔 결국 또 돈 찍기일까? 비트맥스 공동 창업자이자 무기한 선물의 창시자 아서헤이즈가 말합니다. 미국은 자본 통제를 준비 중이고 아시아 자금은 본국으로 돌아오며 비트코인은 결국 100만 달러를 향해 간다고요. 이번 영상에서는 아서헤이즈가 바라보는 글로벌 유동성 흐름, 알트코인의 몰락과 살아남는 프로젝트, 그리고 높은 리스크를 감수하면서도 단기간에 큰 수익을 노리는 투자자인 디젠의 귀환을 부르는 돈의 움직임까지 모두 한눈에 정리해드립니다.
Just give us a sense of the timeline of Bitcoin to $1 million by 2028. You said 250 by end of the year. Is that still your timeline, or have you changed things
so I think
since?
that we get to 250,000 by the end of the year. It'll be bumpy along the way, obviously, but that's sort of my end of year price target. And then $1 million Bitcoin is what I just got off stage talking about how they're going to print, I think, in the realm of $9 trillion-ish between now and that period of time. And that is, Fannie and Freddie, the government support entities that are allowed to create mortgages in the US. They will print $5 trillion. You will have probably up to $1 trillion purchased by the banking system due to supplemental leverage ratio exemptions and purchasing things that the foreigners are selling. And I think the banks are going to because they now don't have to hold all this equity capital against their treasury book. They can lend more into the real American economy. And so you're going to see the amount of loans going to manufacturing firms increase, which is, again, that's an increase in credit, and that will make its way into crypto as well.
When the Fed printed a limited QE back in 2020, all asset classes went up. It wasn't just Bitcoin. So this is good news for Bitcoin, what you just said, the thesis you laid out, but it could be good news for everything else, including stocks, gold, potentially even bonds as well. Why would Bitcoin in particular outperform everything else in a
So Bitcoin has a fixed supply. It's obviously a much smaller market in terms of market cap. And so if you have a lot of things chasing a very small door, then the price goes up on the margin. And so that's why Bitcoin has been the best performing financial asset in the last 15 years.
One particular risk that you've highlighted is the potential for the next administration to write off the Bitcoin strategic reserve completely. If the Democrats win in the next cycle, 2028, and if they cancel the strategic reserve, would we see a lot of selling pressure?
Maybe. It depends on how much Bitcoin is accumulated. It depends on, what the financial pressures are of the government, right? So I think they have like 200,000 Bitcoin that they seize from people, the US government that is, and that could be sold. Obviously, if there's a budget pressure, then that's there's variable, there's money there to sell it. So they can sell it.
Yeah, but do you see them buying more Bitcoin? They haven't done that yet.
I don't think it's politically palatable to buy Bitcoin and print money. I think if you're going to print money, okay, either it's tax cuts or it's build a bridge or build a hospital, these sorts of things that benefit more people than just a small sector of people who own Bitcoin.
Are you disappointed that the Bitcoin strategic reserve will not buy more Bitcoin?
Yeah, why does it not buy more? Because I heard arguments about them selling some gold and buy Bitcoin.
I mean, they could. Anything is possible, but I just think it's bad politics. I think if you create all this money and you could spend it on anything you want, surely spending it on buying Bitcoin is probably not going to be the best way to get votes. Exactly.
Oh, I see. Okay, I want to ask you about altcoin season. Everyone's asking, is it coming? And people are saying, hey, this cycle we have so much garbage. And what is happening now?
Well, I mean, I think that all your altcoins, most of them are probably not going to go up in price again because they don't have product market fit. They don't take any revenue and bring it back to the token holders. And so they're like high FDV, low float bullshit VC coins. And so they're not going to do very well. And that's why you've seen like down only for like, Barachain, maybe Monon, whatever launches. So these types of projects, these very hyped, big fundraising round projects, it can be very hard for them to go up in price because they don't actually have any clients that spend money. But there are projects that are very good that have, product market fit. People spend money. That money goes from the protocol to the token holders. And I think the small subset of products that do that, they're going to do very well.
Pendle,
EtherFi, stuff like that.
Okay. What about all the VC coins from the last cycle? They were doing very well. What happened in this cycle?
I think, again, no product market fit. And again, if you have a very high valuation that you need to grow into and you have no clients actually doing anything on your chain or your product, it's very hard to generate that interest after you've seen the price go down.
And I think in one of your interviews, you said Bitcoin dominance will hit 70%. And then that is when we might see the altcoin season coming. Is that the argument?
I still think that's going to happen.
70%.
We're about 65 now.
So still more outperformance in Bitcoin before we're not
in general. I mean, basically,
you
know, Bitcoin dominance is very predicated on ETH. So if ETH doesn't move, then it's very hard for that ratio to really move that.
Will ETH move?
I think so. I think ETH is very hated. People don't like it. And so if I want to bet on something, the change in the cycle, I think ETH could outperform.
How is Maelstrom positioning itself in terms of your allocation priorities right now?
So most of our portfolios in Bitcoin, a decent slug in ETH, and then we have a lot of term sheet projects. So things that are rolling off because of advisory and investments, and things that we've bought on liquid, probably EtherFi and Pendle are probably our two large positions.
How often do you rotate in and out of Bitcoin?
Not that often. Maybe make one or two big buying or selling things every year. Because again, I don't want to be trading too much.
Yeah, you don't have like a rebalance mandate.
No. There's no mandates. The mandate is outperform Bitcoin. So if we can invest in a new project and it outperforms the Bitcoin capital that we had to sell to invest, that's good. And then we'll buy more Bitcoin with our profits.
Right. Well, we've talked to a lot of Bitcoin maxis that say that the only way to outperform Bitcoin is to buy more Bitcoin. So in a sense, you know.
Well, I mean, I think that's false because you could obviously there's a time period. Over what time period, right? Solana was at $7 and it went up to 300. If you put all your money in Solana at $7 and sold it all at 300, you definitely outperform Bitcoin over that time period. So,
but long term, I mean, I'm not that smart, you know, to trade that difference. Okay, you're the OG in the exchange game, and I think a lot of centralized exchange, they owe you gratitude because I'd say 90% of their revenue is from perps. Right now we see DEXs like Hyperliquid coming out. The token is performing great, but there was this incident of, you know, the jelly meme coin, and that kind of sparked the argument of if it's actually decentralized, and if, you know, centralized exchanges can kill you with $10 million, then is it still safe to use DEXs like that?
Well, I think obviously it's probably less decentralized than they advertised. And it seems like, you know, the people in charge of Hyperliquid decided that they wanted to preserve the buying power of their HLP versus adhering to what the market was saying with the liquidations of this jelly token. So on one hand, yes, it's not very decentralized. On the other hand, it's like, oh, well, I guess they really care about this HLP, which is the backstop for a lot of the markets. So I feel more comfortable trading there. Because at the end of the day, traders don't care about decentralization. They just want liquidity, and they want a nice range of products to trade. So if Hyperliquid offers that in a decentralized way, then fine, let's trade there.
And a lot of centralized exchanges, they're heading towards payment because that's the obvious next step. How do you see this exchange game play out in 10 years?
I mean, I think right now it's a perfectly competitive market. No one has any innovation on products, and everyone charges the same fee. And so it comes down to marketing. It's very difficult to stay in the centralized exchange game, especially if you're in the US, and now you're going to have all the banks offering the same brokerage services. So I think it's going to be very tough for the Coinbases and Krakens of the world to keep their profit margins if JP Morgan is not going to allow their clients to buy Bitcoin.
Speaking of Coinbase, several large exchanges IPO in the last couple of weeks. This sparks a new trend of crypto becoming mainstream in the S&P 500 as well. Coinbase is listed in the S&P 500. So two-part question. I'll ask my first part first. Do you think now all investors investing in the S&P have to be aware and cognizant of the fact that they're indirectly exposed to Bitcoin through any SPX?
I don't think they care, right? A lot of people are just invested in the index. And so they own an ETF, and the ETF owns a lot of stuff, right? That may or may not agree with their particular sensibilities. But they don't care. They just want to be in the index.
With exchanges and centralized exchanges becoming more mainstream, do you see a scenario in which they start siphoning deposits from the regular person from large financial institutions like JP Morgan's and the Bank of America's of the world?
I don't think so, because these banks have better distribution networks than the crypto companies.
So there's no direct competition in the foreseeable future.
Oh, there absolutely is direct competition, right? So if JP Morgan offers the ability to buy Bitcoin and Coinbase does, it's the same Bitcoin that you're buying, right? So then it comes down to really just fees. And so can JP Morgan offer a zero fee trading because they make so much other money in other places around the bank versus Coinbase offering 0% trading. I don't know if I'm not an expert on the Coinbase revenue drivers, but I would imagine a lot of the revenue comes from this very high margin brokerage business that they operate. And so if a JP Morgan or Bank of America says it's zero fee Bitcoin trading, bring your balances here, bring your bank deposits here, well, then what is Coinbase going to do?
Well, okay, so JP Morgan chief Jamie Dimon did say that he's allowing people to buy Bitcoin. He's not going to custody it. If you were to build another BitMEX today, how would you prepare yourself to compete with TradFi entering the crypto space next couple
more
years?
degen. I wouldn't be trying to compete in trading Bitcoin. Okay. That is going to be a loss leading product.
Interesting.
When you say go more degen, what does that mean?
Meme coins, leaning into the launch pad. I think there's some things that people can do to improve sort of the new issue process. So I think there's a lot of more revenue to be earned there than competing on Bitcoin US dollar trading, which is going to be, again, low margin, highly competitive market.
Could you explain what meme coin is to my mom?
Trading culture.
Oh, I like that. Okay. I think in your chat with Anthony Pompliano, you talk about how older generation, they're wealthy and they're trying to sell their asset to the new generation for their retirement. But the new generation, we are not really buying and storing things. We're paying for experiences. How does that play out?
It's going to be interesting to see how regulations pay out for crypto, right? Or any other types of digital assets, because the boomers have stocks to sell. Does anyone want these stocks? Maybe to some extent. Do they want that big suburban house or whatever they have, or apartment in the city? I don't know. So I think there's going to be a massive issue in terms of if the younger generation wants to buy things that the older generation is selling, and they need to sell those things to fund their retirement. How does that square? Are they going to increase taxes because the asset prices of things the boomers own and went down and they can't afford their retirement? So then they're going to tax the young more to pay for their retirement. And are the young going to accept that? I don't know.
What would you guess?
I think there's going to be a lot of intergenerational conflict. I don't know the outcome of it. But it could be money printing at the end of the day, right? Because it's a very easy way for the government to solve this problem.
Everything leads to money printing.
Basically.
That's the solution of everything.
Does money printing lead to more degen activity usually?
Yes, because again, if you don't have a lot of financial assets and you're watching all this inflation happen all around you, you have to use more leverage in the little bit of savings you have to escape.
Why is there less degen interest now than in 2021?
Interest in what though?
The retail interest in the altcoins, and actually some people track also crypto channel volume, viewership volume, is significantly lower now than 4 years ago, despite the fact that Bitcoin and many other things have reached new highs.
Again, I think a lot of these coins have not performed very well. They were priced wrong. They were priced too expensive. And then their actual fundamentals, when you actually said, okay, you launched, the hype is over. Okay, where are the clients? Where's the revenue? Oh, we don't have any. But this thing is a 5 billion FTV. Well, you can't 10x that. It's just hard. So you go from 5 to 50. It's easy to 10x 100 to 1 billion in terms of on the marginal price basis. So I think it's just the price is too expensive.
Is it too far-fetched to say that Bitcoin has become an institutional instrument now and the retail crowd is just no longer interested in that?
No, I'm sure there's lots of retail interest in Bitcoin. It's been well performing and it's the easiest one to understand.
Okay.
Go ahead. You spent a lot of time in Asia and I want to know what you learn from Asia when it comes to money and investment that is pretty much different from the US.
Don't trust the government. I don't think any Asians actually trust their government. And so they're a lot more skeptical of things and they save in different ways. Obviously gold is big in Asia, property investment, those sorts of things. But I think the mentality is just different.
I'm going to switch it back to markets for just for one more question here. Open interest in Bitcoin futures reached unprecedented levels recently. I think it was, checking my notes, $80 billion on May 22nd. $15 billion increase in just 5 days. It's highlighting just unprecedented leverage. What does this signal to you?
Just more interest in the space, right? Obviously, we rallied up towards all-time high, and obviously people are opening more leverage positions, thinking that we're going to run, past 110 much higher quickly. So I think that's
in your past experience running BitMEX. Whenever open interest in futures spikes, what tends to happen next?
I think we want to look for basis expanding. So what's that premium of Bitcoin versus other things? And so I don't think it's anything crazy yet. It's like 10% or something. Right?
Are there any indicators on BitMEX in particular that signaled huge market movement afterward that were pretty consistent, you think?
No, I haven't identified any, but I didn't look that closely. So,
how do you personally pick altcoin? What do you look at?
Narrative. And now it's all about cash flow. So do you generate a lot of cash flows? Is it a way for me as the investor to get paid by supporting you by owning your coin?
And not the valuation.
Well, I mean,
narrative-
early stage stuff, we have caps on how much we'll pay, very specific. But liquid stuff, it's really about cash flows for me.
Don't you feel narrative change too quickly? It's very hard to catch on.
It does, but if you pay the right price, it doesn't matter. If you pay a low enough price, if it launches, most likely you'll make money. But if you pay the high price when you're chasing the narrative and trying to be in every single big deal, then that's when you lose money.
아서헤이즈는 분명히 말합니다. 모든 문제의 해법은 결국 돈을 찍는 것. 하지만 그 유동성이 어디로 흘러갈지는 각국의 정치, 세대 갈등, 투자 심리에 따라 크게 달라집니다. 알트코인 시장은 구조적으로 무너지고 있지만 수익을 나누는 극소수의 프로젝트만이 살아남을 것이고 비트코인은 여전히 유일하게 가장 이해하기 쉬운 자산으로 남아 있습니다. 지금 시장에 참여한 여러분이야말로 그 변화의 흐름 한가운데 서 있습니다. 중동 전쟁이 끝나고 새로운 사이클이 시작되기 전에 오늘의 통찰을 기반으로 나만의 전략을 세워보세요. 그리고 시장의 선택을 받을 극소수의 알트코인 프로젝트, 이 프로젝트에 해당하는 코인이 어떤 것일지 궁금하신 분들은 고정 댓글 통해서 텔레그램 입장하시면 무료로 확인하실 수 있으니까요. 하루에도 급변하는 암호화폐 시장에서 최대한 빠르게 선점하셔서 남부럽지 않은 수익 챙겨가시길 바랍니다. 그럼 다음 영상에서 뵙겠습니다. 감사합니다.